Hello, and welcome to the Passion Driven Pioneers interview series. I'm your host, John Channon, and today I'm joined by Tyler Seagraves and Russell Peterson, who are with DreamLife Destiny. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us, John.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, so could you guys maybe just kick us off with a brief background as to who you are, what you do, and then the business that you're in?
Yeah, so I'm Tyler Seagraves. I have quite a big, extensive background in the social service industry. About 15 years now, started as kind of the bottom level DSP, PCA, working hands-on with people. Worked my way up through college in different group homes and day programs, and then moved into management and independent living. Met Russ along the way, and really found a passion in really teaching people independence and living independently out in the community. So we one day met and said, hey, let's do this ourselves. Let's do it a different way where we can really have our self-advocates lead our industry and really teach people how to live a dream life and fulfill that destiny. So yeah, 15 years down the road, I opened this company about a year and a half ago with Russ, and we now have 26 individuals and 14 staff. But Russ.
So I think what's really important is that we came together with a different vision for social services. Tyler likes to say we put the social back in social services. The idea here is that we came back from very different backgrounds. I'm an architect actually by training, did some very successful projects like I designed the original Lifetime Fitnesses, quite a few other projects around the city, but I worked with specialty populations like the School for the Deaf and Blind in Faribault and a lot of ADA renovation. And I just saw that we weren't doing the kind of accommodations that ADA and other laws had kind of laid out for our population. Right. And so we came together and decided, why we look at all these other companies, why are we working for them when we could find a new way, a new path forward? And our new path forward really is about putting our dream lifers first. How do they become self-advocates? How do they truly become part of the community? How do they get the total package of education they need to live and survive on their own without a lot of additional supports or a lot of other community interventions? So that was really how we got started.
Great. So you work with adults with special needs, and talk
Yes.
a little bit about what it takes to kind of set up a business that's going to service folks with special needs. And is there anything in particular that folks in this type of business would have to make sure that they cover?
Yeah, so I guess, with every business, there's a lot of licensing, requirements and things that you have to follow. We follow a 245D license under the state statute of DHS's Minnesota state statute, which regulates us every year on making sure that we are following the regulations and state statutes, licensing, required paperwork and things. But, what I tell people on the other side of things is that, you have to teach people how to do all the paperwork, yes, and everything, but you can't teach people how to care. Being a caregiver, right? It takes a special person that really wants to make a difference. Going into this field trying to make money or trying to move up the ladder, really, there's not a lot of funding there. So it takes a special person to really care for another person. And I think that's where the business will go a long way if you do have those support people that are really caring for those individuals to see the success for people.
I think that's really the basis of our business. But there's some really important things that you need to pay attention to if you're going to start a business in this area. One is DHS is way behind in their approvals for licenses. According to state statute, they have 90 days. Ours took over a year and a half to get, and it took another 6 months to get through their financial billing process. Now they're saying it's almost 4 years to get a license. So in an industry, it's really a challenge, sort of just to even get a license to get started to do that. There are also some other challenges in the industry. One is we're deeply understaffed in the industry, and part of the reason is that we don't pay very well. Industry-wide doesn't pay very well. So when we started our business, we made a concerted effort to say, we are going to go above and beyond for our employees. We want a lower turnover. We want people who are committed and are going to stay in our organization. So we pay better, we have better benefits, we have more comprehensive understanding, and we listen and pay attention to our employees. And I think that extra mile that we went has made a huge difference in the establishment of our business. Now we have a wait list for people who want to come to work for us while most people can't find employees. And we have a large wait list for DreamLifers, people who want to come and get our services. So I think that combination of caring and the real understanding of the industry are the biggest combination in terms of starting this business.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing that background of kind of what it takes to get something like this up and going. Would you guys just kind of comment maybe on some of the types of services that you are providing to your adult population?
Yeah, so we started with a kind of a blanket of dual services approach. Finding the highest need for our people is definitely on the mental health side of things, as well as living independently, right? Everyone wants that independence. So we have two services there. One is IHS with Train, which is individualized home supports with training. The with training means basically that you're teaching a skill or a goal. So that's one-on-one supports that an individual inside their home or inside a foster care home or in their parents' home, you go into, you work on different skills within 3 hours to about 20 hours a week. And that could be anywhere from shopping, cooking, budgeting, organization, getting out in the community, self-advocacy, a bunch of different range of things. And then the other side of thing, or the other side of services is 24-hour emergency assistance that we pair that with. And that's really a mental health service that provide 24 hours a day that is available for staff to respond on site at any time, whether it's a mental health crisis, whether it's someone needing to go to the hospital, a schedule change, they're locked out of their house, or they just want to call and problem solve, or they had a bad day. That burdens the emergency services that we use in our community, that people do not, our DreamLifers will not have to respond into the hospitals or using emergency services.
Yeah, I'd like to interject here that the idea with our dual services is that we save the state and the county and cities a lot of money on emergency services. Because we are supporting people consistently, they're less likely to use those services. It's much cheaper to do that up front than it is on the rear end, right? So we have one gentleman, for instance, who was going to the ER twice a month before we came in, and he hasn't gone once since we started with him. And so I think that the idea that we pair this dual service that really creates a good support network overall for our individuals is really the most important thing.
Yeah, and then actually we just added to our license, we have respite services that will be starting, and that's basically a break for a family to have an individual come and have kind of a weekend away, or a vacation, as you'd say. We also have employment services that we are offering to get people meaningful employment in the community, and then overnight supervision for people needing support overnight, so with technology.
And then eventually we're going to add housing supports, because we found that job support and housing support were the two additional biggest needs that our individuals needed.
Oh, that's good. So let's talk a little bit about, your industry, and, you guys mentioned you got this up and going not too long ago, but what are some of the ways that you're trying to remain innovative in this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when you look at social services in the industry, and looking at isolation and mental health, especially since COVID, that's kind of when we started our business, is that we realized that mental health and isolation is on a rise, and it's not going away, right?
It profoundly impacted our DreamLifers way more than it did the rest of the population.
So when we started this business at DreamLife, we really focused on the social part of social services. And we like to say we bring back that social part. We have many different clubs that are led by our DreamLifers and our self-advocates that are anywhere between coffee club every other Friday, to recovery clubs, to game nights, to cooking clubs, to just going out to a fair in the community to be, community members. In society. We isolate so much, and we forget that people with disabilities are a minority, an invisible minority, right? And really integrating people in the community and making them feel that they're community members and self advocates and want to be out and proud of themselves, is what we identify ourselves different. We don't see labels, right? We talk about labels all the time. We all can label each other, whether you're an owner, whether you're a diverse group or whatever it is. But what we try and define ourselves is I'm Tyler and you're John, right? We don't see people in wheelchairs. We see people as the person they are, right? Or someone with Down syndrome doesn't mean that they are less than, right? We see them as capable and humans in society that we want to be good members. So, I think that's the difference is that we build a community and want to keep expanding that community to build knowledge and awareness.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing, commonality we have with everybody is what I will say is social anxiety, because so many people have been pushed aside and not embraced as a part of the community. So we do things like go to the theater. We had, 20 people go to a musical just a couple of months ago. All of a sudden, they're interacting with other people. We're sitting in the crowd with everybody else. Nobody knows, right? So all of a sudden, they're starting to feel like, wow, I could do this. I can be a part of this, right? And overcome those inhibitions that they have. That to us is probably the biggest factor that makes a difference in our dream lifers.
I never did ask, but the two of you come from different backgrounds. How did you guys meet?
Yeah, so actually, I was about 10 years into, the social service industry. I was kind of in that director level and I was really kind of in that standstill. I didn't know where else to go and I was kind of losing connection, working that direct care the higher I went. So I was actually interested in kind of expanding my career and looking at a different career path. And I went to um, like a networking event and I heard Russ talking to a different individual about housing and low income housing. And I was like, whoa, well, I know about that. Maybe I could get into something, and that kind of stuff because I've been helping in that realm, right? Well, didn't know Russ was kind of looking for a job as well. Talked to him, he's like, yeah, I'm an architect. And I'm like, hey, well, I want to open a business someday. Like maybe you can design homes and I can, run the business. Kind of didn't go that way. But and Russ can kind of tell you his background. But I talked to him for a little bit and he's like, yeah, I would just like to see what you do. And I brought him in for an interview. He was incredible. He worked under I think it was 6 months. He had a review and I sat with the owners and we sat there and we were like, we can't pay you enough. You're phenomenal. We've never had direct feedback from these DSPs or from the actual clients from DSPs, and direct support for professionals is what that stands for. And, so I looked at Russ and I was like, I have an opportunity at a different business, kind of in growth and a big ladder scheme kind of thing, moving up the ladder. And I turned or I accepted a job as an operational director and brought Russ aboard as a specialist. We came into the program, had to really redesign this whole program. And after that, we looked at each other and that's kind of when Dream Life started. So, but he can tell you kind of his side where.
Well, I just think I've always been interested in helping people. That's partly why I got into architecture to begin with. And what I found over my career for a long period of time is that architecture became more and more about development and money and not so much about people. I mean, yes, there were the occasional projects that happened, but it wasn't as much as I thought it would be, right? I started actually as a developer with CCHT, which is now Aon, one of the largest Midwest affordable housing suppliers, and worked in nonprofit and low-income housing for a long time, saw the need, develop the opportunity housing model, getting people off the streets, doing that kind of thing. And then I went at home to take care of my kids. I was an at-home dad for 18 years. They taught me a lot about humanity, a lot more than I had learned anywhere else. And when I came out of the other side and started another architecture firm, I started pursuing that. And I just didn't still find that kind of connection and compassion about making the world really a better place. When we kind of met at this networking event, I got really interested because I had an architecture firm that was deemed necessary, but a lot of our projects had gone on hold because of COVID. And I wanted to keep my staff. I didn't want to lay them off. So I found another job, Tyler, to pay my staff, which I never laid anybody off on. I'm really proud of the fact that we work hard as a team to support our staff, no matter what company we're in. And after that journey that he just described, I just got excited about doing this work and thought, well, here's the change, my new direction of my career, and this is what I'm going to do. So, and I've not even looked back. I mean, it's just been fantastic.
That's really good. So knowing that this show is really directed towards people who are going to be in their first few years of business and maybe in this type of business, do you have any final thoughts or words of advice you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I think, being an entrepreneur and doing this service for 15 years, looking back, I think, taking that initiative, following those dreams that you have and really stepping in and going after it. I think, I could take back 14 years and start this business and seeing where it's at. Yes, I've had a lot of experience and yes, a lot of people talk about that experience helps and support, but really if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, or like, you want to do something, go after and get it. I think attack it at full force is what I would do. I lost both jobs starting this business, as an operational director, making a lot of money. And I ended up door dashing for a year and a half to make this work, but we made it work, right? Russ as well. The never stop, right? Don't ever give up and fight for it, because it's worth it.
You definitely have to have drive. I was going to say there are really two things. One is if you really want to live your dreams, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And so, the idea that we both DoorDash for 2 years to raise money to fund this business, which our loans, we were self-funded, we have paid back. So we've gotten it back. It took a lot of extra effort. We were also working, 70, 80-hour weeks, and we've been doing that for a long time. We're finally seeing the benefits of that, but I think you've got to really be committed to it. And the second thing I would say is find the right people. You have to look. And we have spent so much time for every person that we hire, we probably look at 100 people. So you have to work really hard at finding the right people, finding the right mix, know they're committed, know they care, know they're going to stay, and then stay communicated and work with them the best you possibly can.
Yeah.